Rather than do a full review this week, I wanted to update everyone on the differences with the current BLF Sofirn LT1. This is the new A2 version, and the original I have here is in black. You really should go back and watch the original video of the LT1 for a really in-depth review. This is going to be more of those differences and just talk about that. So I'm going to assume you've watched that old review. Thanks to Sofirn for sending this one to me. If I have any coupons or other things, I will post them in the description along with links to my social media accounts. So what's changed here? In short, Sofirn's made a few changes to the driver board to update a few shortcomings of the original LT1 and bring it into 2022. The biggest change here is the UI difference. The light now uses Android 2, and here is a diagram. And I'm not going to go over all the details here because it's a complicated UI, but the big difference in Android 2 is the addition of simple mode and advanced mode. So simple mode up here is your basic light functions. You've got your tint ramping, you've got your brightness ramping, you can change it to stepped if you prefer, it does voltage check, it does reset. Then in advanced UI, you've got additional features. You can thermally configure it, you can adjust the ramp, you can configure other modes, you've got battery check here, SOS, beacon, you can configure the brightness of the switch, and this is probably where you'll want to focus if you do go into advanced modes, because you've got things like candle mode, lightning storm, tactical strobe, party flasher, and bike flasher. And it goes in a clockwise order here, with lightning and candle modes being the last two. I will put some night shots in here of what lightning mode looks like and what candle mode looks like as well, so you can kind of see the difference and enjoy. They're pretty cool. Android 2 is going to be more friendly for beginners, so if you've seen Android 1 or used it in the past and put it because it's complicated, don't worry about that with this one. The big difference here is the PCB driver board in the A2, which is on the left. The original featured pogo pins, which we can see over here on the right hand side, and what they did was they allowed you to flash firmware and change settings easily. However, on the A2, those have been eliminated, and now you've got to take these screws out and use the underside of the board to actually access the chip itself with an SOIC clip to make those changes. For most people, they aren't probably going to be doing that, so it's not a big issue. I would show you what the underside of the circuit board looks like, but I found these screws to be incredibly tight and actually managed to end up starting to strip one a little bit, so I decided I wouldn't mess with that anymore. Another change on the driver is that on the A2 version, all 14 of the 7135 chips are enabled by default. On the older version here, you could only about half of them were enabled by default, and you could bridge those connections manually with solder to change the light's characteristics. So what those do, that's your channels for your FET drivers. And with all the chips enabled, you have your maximum brightness here. And with those 6 or 7 enabled on the previous light, you've got your maximum efficiency. LEDs here remain the same. They're both the Samsung LH351D LEDs in 2700K and 5000K to give you that maximum flexibility and range. Enabling all the 7135 chips is worth about an additional 200 lumens, according to Sofirn. I didn't stick this one down my lumen tube because, well, it's a lantern and doesn't really work or fit very well. I just couldn't get numbers that were anywhere accurate just because of my setup here. To the eye, that those 200 lumens are fairly hard to tell, but you can kind of tell side by side. It's not a huge deal. And remember, if you're running brighter, you can always toggle it down a little bit to get more. And I did do a runtime test to compare the two. Original lantern does hold out more output. It ran on the lowest output forever versus the A2 version did eventually shut off. The V2 ran at 100% warm output for 6 hours and 26 minutes, where the V1 ran at the same setting for 9 hours and 40 minutes. As you can see here from the graph, the V1 ran longer, but it was during this time it was running at 1% or less of relative output. The difference more at 100% was around 90 minutes, with the V1 being longer. As I mentioned, it's got a lower output while doing this. It's relative output here, so it's not total output or lumens. And you could accomplish this with the V2 by just not running at 100%. So one of the things that was lacking on the original LT1 was that it didn't have a power bank function. You had all these batteries in here, up to 4 18650s, and it was just charging in. You couldn't charge any devices or anything like that. So in A2, they changed that. It can now be used as a power bank. And as you can see here, I've got a power meter hooked up to a load, and I'm pulling right at 3 amps, which is the maximum. And this works pretty well here. I was able to discharge 7,301 milliwatt hours. And while that's not the most efficient, that's not too bad here. It'd be great to top up a cell phone or something like that with it pretty easily. Most phones, you should probably get, 2 charges off that, give or take, depending on how big the battery is on your phone. And I've got my Galaxy S22 here charging, and I've got to kind of hold this because the way this meter connects, the shoulders of it just are a little bit too big, but it's charging at 2 amps, no problem, 10 watts. Charging my phone, it's not fast charge or anything like that. It's at 51% right now, and it's reporting 40 minutes to charge. One of the other benefits here was that the charging time of the lantern seemed to be faster with the onboard charging. I charged it from where it shut off to full in 6 hours and 40 minutes versus the original took 10 hours and 15 minutes. So a nice speed increase there. And another small change that I noticed was the LED button here. This is probably going to be hard to notice on camera, but the A2 version here is green, and it is quite bright. The original LT1 uses an orange LED, and it's much dimmer. You can go into the firmware and disable the button or turn it down, which is what I'll probably end up doing later. The last thing I wanted to talk about was just the accessories here. The LT1's been a cult favorite, so a lot of people have come out with accessories or just things you can do that make the light more usable. My favorite is probably this magnet here. It's a 1/4-20 and can thread into the side here if you wanted to mount it onto something like that, or where I run it is on the bottom. And this is a strong magnet, and it can easily hold the weight of the light up. So it's really versatile. Hang it upside down, hang it on the side, just make sure it won't fall over. You've still got that hanger there that's popular. I've also 3D printed a few accessories. I've got a base here that somebody made. It's not really tight enough that it does a whole lot. I've also got a lampshade lantern here, and this is when I was new to 3D printing, so it's not the best quality, but it looks kind of silly, but actually it's pretty functional. If I was gonna have a power outage or something like that, I definitely wanna have a shade handy. The bad thing is that this doesn't fold down or anything like that, so it takes up quite a bit of room. The most essential thing I think you need if you get a lantern though is a case like this. I'll have a link to this. This is a JBL speaker case from a third party, and how I've got it configured, it fits with the magnet on here, no problem. I've got the charging cord there, and I've got a 2 amp charger from an old cell phone in here. So this just makes one compact package. I've got to get another one of these since I've got 2 of the lanterns now. Definitely a must have. It does make it a little bit bigger, but not much. It protects the light pretty well, and I just think got a nice carrying case, and just additions that everybody should have. Sofirn has a few of these too now. They're not branded. They're just buying them kind of the same way you do, but you can get them off Amazon a lot quicker as well. Again, I'll link to those. Make sure to pick one up. So my final thoughts on the LT1 here, and mine actually is in brown. I don't think I mentioned that earlier. It's kind of a gold, bronzy color. I like it. While not an essential upgrade, the changes made on the PCB with the addition of the Powerbank feature and Android 2 make for a light that's easier to use for newer users, and a great addition to the survival or camping aspects of the light with that power bank feature. The question of if it's worth picking up another if you already have an LT1 is hard to say. It's still a heavy lantern with a somewhat high center of gravity, and I think you should have more than one if you're in an area prone to nasty weather or power outages. If you can solder, you can also pick up the A2 PCB from Sofirn's website and upgrade your original LT1 if you want to. So that could be a good option for some people. That saves quite a bit of money. Overall, I think it's a nice addition to the family, and it kind of rounds out the trio here. If you guys don't know, I did review the LT1S, the short version of the lantern, and then I've got the LT1 Mini here, which I will be reviewing coming up soon. So make sure you stay tuned to the channel or subscribe so you don't miss these other reviews, and I will see you on the next review. Thanks for watching.